How's it going, everybody? My name is Noah Holly, and welcome back to another episode of the Pride Report. It is episode 16, and today I'm going to be recapping last night's set of top 10 upsets, providing an Atlantic Sun outlook, and discussing the changes in my bracketology. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. Let's talk a little bit about last night's games. We had a couple of upsets on Monday night, starting with Virginia Tech knocking off 10th-ranked UNC 80-69. Huge win for the Hokies. Kerry Blackshear Jr. had 16, and Justin Robinson led Virginia Tech with 19. This was kind of a make-or-break game for Virginia Tech, as a handful of poor efforts in conference play put the Hokies on the verge of falling out of NCAA tournament contention. Coming into this contest, Tech's best win was on a neutral court versus Washington. But contrary to what their poor resume suggests, this actually isn't a bad team. I think the issue is more that they just don't know how good they can be, so the effort is inconsistent. But now that they have a signature win, perhaps things will begin to turn around. And in terms of UNC, the Tar Heels need to figure out how to win on the road. In a conference as tough as the ACC, road wins are a key deciding factor in who comes out on top in the final standings. Right now, UNC is two completely different teams, home and away, and that has to change. Let's continue the theme of teams in dire need of a signature win that got one last night. TCU knocked off number 7 West Virginia in their first game out of the top 25 in several weeks. Alex Robinson had a big night for the Frogs, which is great news. Reeling West Virginia was led by 16 from Javon Carter. TCU out-hustled West Virginia on both ends of the floor. The Mountaineers were unable to string baskets together during the first 35 minutes of the game and struggled to implement their erratic defensive style throughout. It was the most complete all-around effort West Virginia has faced all year, and they failed to respond. But back to Alex Robinson. The Horned Frogs will be perfectly fine if Robinson, who had 17 points last night, consistently produces like he did in this game. With Jalen Fisher out for the remainder of the season, Robinson's performance becomes crucial to TCU's success. There was some other ranked action as well. Ohio State moved to 9-0 in Big Ten play, fighting off a Nebraska team that refused to go away last night. Keita Bates-Diop had 20 as the Buckeyes won 64-59. James Palmer Jr. had 34 points for Nebraska. His teammates managed a combined 25, which is pretty crazy. OSU just could not find an answer for Palmer at any point of this matchup, and it nearly cost them their spotless conference record. You may think OSU's performance is concerning, but I disagree. Good teams win these types of games. Everyone's going to have multiple nights throughout the year where they don't bring their A game, and whether or not they maintain their composure and mental toughness says a lot about what kind of team that they are. In other Big Ten action, Indiana edged Maryland in a 71-68 nail-biter to put a serious dent in the Terps' NCAA hopes. IU's Juwan Morgan is an absolute problem. Indiana may not be a very good team, but Morgan is one of the toughest matchups in the country when he plays to his potential. He certainly did last night, scoring 25 to lead Indiana to the upset victory. Tuesday's slate is very strong. 2 top 20 matchups, plus number 1 Villanova on upset alert on their home floor. Let's go ahead and take a look. Nova will host a surging Providence squad at 6:30 p.m. on FS1. Providence has won its last 4 games, topping the likes of Creighton, Butler, and Xavier over the stretch, but none of these victories would compare to a win over the top-ranked Wildcats. I don't see it happening, though, as no Big East team can truly compare top to bottom to Villanova, and especially considering that Villanova's at home, not loving Providence's chances in this one. 7 p.m. on ACC Network features a stiff test for second-ranked Virginia, who will host number 18 Clemson. Besides UNC, UVA has avoided the ACC's toughest opponents in conference play thus far. That will change, however, as they face the Tigers, Duke, and Louisville over their next 3 games. As a UVA fan, I'm a little bit anxious about this stretch, as we will learn whether the Wahoos are a legitimate national title threat or on the outside looking in once again. We know about the defense, but offensive inconsistencies have been apparent over the last few games. Clemson, on the other hand, feels less confident about this matchup than they may have a few days ago, as Dante Grantham is done for the year. I'm unsure about the Tigers' outlook for the remainder of the season without their star, but I'd be surprised if they lose their status as one of the tougher tests in the ACC without the senior forward, because there's just too much talent on this roster, even without Grantham. Then we have the big one. Kansas goes on the road to face Oklahoma. Oklahoma comes into the game with a lot of questions after back-to-back losses, whereas the Jayhawks hit the road on the heels of 5 consecutive narrow wins. Kansas is not easily fazed, to put it simply. There's a couple of reasons why I'm really excited for this game. First of all, I'm really curious to see if Trae Young can bounce back from the roughest week of his college career. He's been so overly aggressive as of late, he's no longer focused on creating opportunities for his teammates and taking high percentage looks. And second, I'm hyped for the matchup of Devontae Graham and Young. Graham is an excellent on-ball defender. Bill Self is hoping that Graham can limit Young's overall effectiveness, similar to how West Virginia did, by taking him out of his comfort zone with the ball in his hands and making him defend by driving to the basket. And thirdly, I'm pumped because this matchup never disappoints. Kansas versus Oklahoma is one of the most consistently entertaining annual matchups in sports. I'm really looking forward to it. 7 p.m. on ESPN. Tune in. You won't regret it. Besides this contest, we have a few other interesting matchups as well. Georgia hosts Arkansas at 6:30 p.m. on SEC Network in a crucial bubble battle. Both teams are in desperate need of a win to gain footing in my projected bracket. At 7 p.m., Texas hosts Oklahoma State. Texas Tech, hosts Oklahoma State on ESPN News. The Red Raiders have been upset in back-to-back games, falling to Texas and Iowa State. Oklahoma State may very well be able to match the talent level of both of those schools. Number 22, Tennessee hosts Vanderbilt at 7 p.m. on ESPNU. I still like the Vols as a top 15, top 20 club. I expect they win by double digits in this one. St. John's, who sits at a disappointing 0-8 record in Big East play, will host Creighton at 8:30 p.m. on FS1. The quality matchups extend well into the 9 p.m. time slot. Wake Forest hosts Duke, looking to get revenge after the Blue Devils beat them fairly easily earlier this month. Finally, LSU hosts Texas A&M, also 9 p.m., in a rematch of the Tigers' stunning last-second comeback win in College Station earlier this month. Welcome to the newest recurring segment on the Pride Report, which is my bracketology update. For those of you that don't know, I am College Pride Press's bracketology expert, if you will. I've been a member of the Matrix for a couple of years now. I update my bracketology every single night with the exception of Friday and Saturday. So if that's the stuff that you're interested in, I have a link in the description. I'm going to have one after every single show. Anyway, let's take a look at the movement in today's projections. Now, I no longer make my projections into an actual bracket with sites and that sort of thing, as NCAA rules interfere, and I have to adjust seeding for matchup purposes, which I really don't want to do. So this is going to be more of a seeding list than anything. So yeah, I'm changing the style a little bit, but it's still my good old projections. So anyway, I adjusted my projections near the top line today, moving West Virginia and UNC down from 2 seeds after their losses last night, moving to 3 seeds. Clemson and Oklahoma were the logical choices to move up a line. I love Clemson's resume, as they have strong non-conference wins over Ohio State and Florida, and a couple of solid ACC wins in there as well. A win over Virginia tonight will put them in the conversation for a 1 seed. 4 and 5 seeds remain untouched. TCU moves up a spot to the 6th line. I was wary about putting the Horned Frogs higher than a 7 seed until they picked up a signature win. After they got one over West Virginia last night, I felt confident that they should replace Wichita State. I actually ended up knocking Wichita down 2 pegs after a closer examination of their resume. They sit as an 8 seed right now. Kansas State moved up to a 10 seed after topping Baylor last night, replacing Alabama. My last 4 in remained unchanged, even though I spent an hour and a half contemplating adjusting it. That's why I probably seem so tired. But if you didn't know, my last 4 in consisted of Marquette, Missouri, USC, and Notre Dame. None of them have good resumes at the moment, but for the second night in a row, I struggled to find a compelling enough option on the outside looking in to warrant replacing these guys. I took a couple of snow days last week and it messed up my schedule in a big way. I need to get back on track with my mid-major outlooks. So without further ado, let's talk Atlantic Sun hoops for a little while. The A-Sun is less cluttered than some of the other mid-major conferences that we've looked at thus far. Florida Gulf Coast is the clear favorite, and I'm not convinced that the Eagles have anything close to a legit challenger in this league. The player of the year is fairly obvious, as well as Lipscomb's Garrison Matthews is one of the top scorers in the country, averaging 22.7 points per game. No one in this conference is close to matching those numbers. All right, let's take a look at the current standings. Lipscomb's Three-game losing streak paved way for Jacksonville to gain some footing. North Florida is also having a nice start as well. But both of these teams were utterly terrible in non-conference play, so I'm not confident that they are going to be able to sustain this run of success. Lipscomb and NJIT have disappointed me. Honestly, I'm really scrambling to find positives. There's really just not that much in this conference besides FGCU. Florida Gulf Coast is easily the most complete team in this league. Lipscomb can really score, so I'll keep an eye out for them in the NCAA or in the conference tournament. I'll keep an eye out for them in the conference tournament. But I would be extremely surprised if anyone else but Florida Gulf Coast ends up winning that tourney. That would genuinely shock me. But I'll leave you with my prediction for the final standings. Tomorrow, I'm going to be discussing the Big Sky. Can anyone beat Montana? That's going to be the big question that I'm going to be talking about tomorrow. There's a couple of teams in that league that may have what it takes. You don't want to miss it, so be sure to tune in tomorrow. Welcome to today's conversation segment. Here are some of the best college basketball tweets over the last 24 hours. For the National Coach of the Year, Kevin Sweeney, or at CBB_Central, writes, "To me, Maryland is just not an NCAA tournament team. I've watched them a ton this year, and they just never impress me. Haven't beaten anyone. Love the roster, but they've been banged up big time. Future is bright in College Park with 2018 class and everyone coming back." He's absolutely right. Every now and then, a team with great pieces just can't figure out how to put it all together, whether it be the result of injuries or lack of team chemistry or et cetera, et cetera. Maryland is a prime example of this. Tony Patelis, the unrivaled king of college hoops Twitter, wrote this. At College Hoop News, I'm sure you know that already. There's certainly plenty of candidates for the National Coach of the Year, but if Ohio State continues to play well, I'm just not sure how you don't give it to Chris Holtmann. It would be a robbery if he doesn't win. The National Coach of the Year race is as interesting as it has ever been. I can't remember a year where this many people are talking about it. Tony Bennett, Rick Barnes, Matt Painter, and Bruce Pearl are a few of the many examples of a coach who has his team performing a zillion times better than any of us expected. But what Holtmann has accomplished stands out above the rest. To come in and dominate the Big Ten with this Ohio State team of all teams is truly remarkable. Thank you so much for watching today's episode of The Pride Report. I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to subscribe and to follow the show on Twitter at CPP Pride Report. You can also follow me on Twitter at NoahSports1 for daily bracketology insight. I would really appreciate that. Anyway, that's going to do it for tonight's episode. Be sure to join me tomorrow for episode 17. I'm going to play a game of blind resumes live on this show and recap tonight's game. Should be a lot of fun, but I'm out for now. I'll see ya.